Yeah, I think everyone is. So let's now it's time for the webinar. So I'd like to introduce Claire Sheffield from Strong and Together Brand Studio. Claire began her design career at top London agency Williams Murray Ham in 1998. And in 2010, she founded her own studio, Strong and Together, to help growing businesses build successful and profitable brands. Strong and Together is a dynamic brand partner to trailblazers and ambitious existing brands. Drawing on over 20 years of experience, Claire leads a team of branding experts. Please post questions in the chat box for our question and answer session afterwards. And we're now going to mute everybody, and it's over to you, Claire.
Brilliant. Thank you for that fabulous introduction, Jackie. I'm going to share my screen and then I'll be able to present to you. So can everybody see that screen okay? Give me some thumbs up. Brilliant, that's fantastic. So as I say, I think you can just post questions in the chat, which I can talk about afterwards, but I'll obviously talk through the presentation. And I hope that there's some interesting information here for you. So today, basically, I'm going to be talking about some very simple steps to brand success. So that's how to succeed in your business ambitions by harnessing the power of your brand. So I've simplified it down to kind of 5 very simple steps, and I will talk you through those. So first of all, what do I really mean by brand success? What is brand success? Well, it's really when your brand is working for your business. It's really when it's resonating with your customers and actually helping to sell your product or your service for you. That's when it's successful. So brand success always starts with a problem and a goal. So today I'm just going to talk through sort of the top problem that our clients come to us with, really, and that's about leveling up to their business ambition. That might be to enter a new market, or it might be to elevate their brand. So there's lots of different reasons why people want to level up. And there are very simple steps that you can take to improve your branding, which I'm going to obviously talk through now. So step number 1 is, so what's so special about you? Why would someone ask you to do their copywriting and not somebody else? Why would someone ask you to design their house for them and not another architect? So I'm going to talk about that. So first of all, you need to understand and define your product service characteristics and your ideal customer. What are they looking for? What problem do you need to solve for them? So you need to understand and define the benefits of your product or service for your specific target audience. And you also need to understand and define your brand personality of tone of voice. You know, are you super premium? Are you mass market? Are you playful? Are you incredibly serious? Depending on obviously the type of industry that you're in and what you provide. And this is your USP. So once you've really sort of dug into those particular areas about, you know, your ideal customer, your personality, that's going to give you your USP, which is your unique selling point. So why does somebody want to work with you as opposed to your competition? And I'm just going to talk through now just a few examples which sort of bring that to life and demonstrate how your USP can really shape your brand identity. So the first example actually is for an optometrist that we worked with. And when you think of optometrist, you might think of frames and that type of thing. But actually, when we really dug deep and got under the skin of what Valerie Jerome Optometrists was about, they're actually about eye care. It's very much about the health and the care of the eye and not really about frames. Obviously, they supply frames, but actually the eye care is the most important thing. So actually the identity is obviously focused around an eye with the initials VJ making up the actual eye logo. And it's presented in a very refined, sophisticated way because it was very much about that sort of high quality boutique feel. And another example I've got here is an architect. So when you think of an architect, you might think of blueprints, sort of structure, that type of thing. But actually, what Absolute Architecture's USP is actually about making a house a dream home. And it's actually the sort of the details inside the house that actually make it become a home. So the identity was very much focused on interior elements of homes, and obviously executed in a very sort of sophisticated, refined way that would appeal to their target market, specifically the sort of very Farrow and Ball-esque type color palette that we've got there that appeals to their target market. And then another example here is Posy, which is a sort of a natural organic range of deodorants. And when you think of the sort of natural and organic, you think, you know, craft, you think botanical illustrations, but actually, you know, natural confidence can be a lot more about sort of less is more, a lot more minimal. So we have a very sort of clean, clean packaging with, you know, instead of a complicated botanical illustration, a really, really simple graphic flower that's made up of the oil icons. So you can kind of see just from those examples how really drilling into the USP means that you can have an identity that's very unique and ownable to you, as opposed to like the rest of your competition. So step number 2 is really about review time. It's about having a look at your identity and, you know, how do you actually review your own identity to see whether it's working for your business or not really. So the first thing to do is to really have your USP to hand. So all those things that we've talked about in step 1 in terms of the personality, you know, the tone of voice, all of those things, have that to hand. And gather all of your printed material, anything that you've got digital online, get it all printed out, get it all in front of you. And then basically look at it and think, is that actually encapsulating your unique selling point? Is it actually resonating with your customers? Does it make sense to them? And then consider whether it's actually consistent. Is there consistency across all of your material? Are there different logo versions, different colors, different brand messages? It's amazing how you can kind of think that your identity is quite solid and consistent, and it's only when you look at it all together you realize actually it's become quite fragmented over time. So if the answer is yes, then yes, you might have the beginnings of a really powerful brand. But if the answer is no, you might need to revisit your identity. And that could be yourself, or it could be finding a design partner to help you. So this is an example here. I just thought it might be helpful to put in. This was a brand review for a client of ours called L'Olive. And we were actually approached by the Design Council to work with L'Olive. And they had a very successful business, won lots of great taste awards. They have a market at Borough Market and around lots of others in market. They sell their jarred products throughout delicatessens wholesale. But actually their branding was beginning to hold them back. It's their food is actually Malaysian in origin, but L'Olive sounds French. So the brand name is difficult, it's confusing. The actual identity is quite one-dimensional. There's not very much personality. So actually we worked with them and it became Jolly. So Jolly is from the Baba Malay dialect, which is where the founders are from, for joyful. And actually the brand essence, the USP, was actually all about fresh, powerful flavors with lots of layers and texture. So it was a total rename, rebrand, and you can see the identity is now kind of full of joy and packed with that that sort of essence of joyfulness and flavor that was really lacking before. So step number 3, how do you choose a design partner? In fact, if you do need a design partner, you might decide that your brand is absolutely fine as it is, or that you might decide that you'd like to try and design an identity yourself. But if you decide to choose a design partner, what are the steps to take? So the first thought, if you approach a design expert, they're going to ask you for your USP, all of those things we talked about in step 1, or they will work with you to discover it. And that might take the form of a meeting, or quite often we like to have a workshop with lots of our clients to really get under the skin and understand their brand. And sometimes if there's a product, for example, it's really helpful to look at, to try to explore what their product actually is. And then also make a list of the deliverables you need for your business. So, for example, you might need some printed materials, some stationery, you might need a website, you might need some digital collateral, depending on your business, you might need a van, whatever is relevant for your particular business, because a designer will ask you what deliverables you need for your business in order to be able to give you an idea of cost. And then have a look at their website and case studies and testimonials, and actually think, does the work look as if they could handle a project like yours? Have they worked in your sector? Or, do the testimonials suggest that they work really well with people? And also, are they asking you the right questions? Are they asking you about your target market? Are they asking you about your product or services? Branding is communicating outwardly your business. And so it is absolutely crucial that you take the time to understand your business. And that's not just now, it's, you really need a design partner to understand your business ambitions. Where are you trying to take the business? Not just where it is now, but what are the ambitions for the future? Because any investment that you have in your branding, you really want to be future-proofing it as much as possible. So branding that can take you to, for the next however many years is going to give you the best return on investment. So step number 4, what does a powerful brand actually look like? So it will have some or all of the following elements. So it might have a logo or a strapline. It will most definitely have a color palette of some sort. There'll be brand fonts, a typographic style. There might be an imagery style, and that could be illustration, it could be photography, or it could be purely typographic. There'll be an overall look and feel, and there'll also be a tone of voice. So it's how those elements are actually put together. It's, as I've put there, the craft, the curation, and the sort of intention that creates the brand. It's how all of those elements interact with each other that creates something that's unique and that's going to be powerful to you and resonate with your customers. And then it's when they, when that actually brings the USP to life and when it resonates with the customer, that's when the magic really happens. That's when it begins to become really powerful, when your target market really understands your business and what you're providing. So I've put a really famous quote here that I'm sure most of you will have heard by Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon. So your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, which is absolutely true. But what's really crucial to think is that you actually need to express and understand and know what you want people to understand about your brand, so that you can make sure you're putting out the right message. So yes, when you're not in the room, people are saying the right things about you that you actually want them to say. So step 5, consistency, consistency, consistency. And I've actually deliberately put the capital C in there and the lowercase c's, because first of all, that's what I did in the rest of the presentation, but also because consistency, brand consistency, is not about putting on a straitjacket. Brand consistency needs to have space to actually be able to grow and evolve a brand at the same time as being consistent. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. So yeah, the last step is simple, but it is crucial. It's got to be used consistently. So, that's your logo, your color palette, your fonts, your imagery, all of that's got to be consistent. because consistency creates the confidence in the brand and it creates brand loyalty. When brands are inconsistent, it just creates a sort of there's an unsettling feeling. People won't necessarily understand why, but it's small inconsistencies that actually start to break down the brand. So keeping it as tight as possible sort of creates that confidence. So I've just got an example here of an identity. So Eliane are a client that we've worked with for about 7 years now, and you can see the top 3 images there are very much from the core brand identity, which was a very tight typographic identity with a quite a tight color palette, and it was very clean and typographic. And then the bottom 6 images are from the past kind of about 3 years. So we introduced a new illustrative style in addition to the brand identity we'd already created, to create this much more kind of playful tone of voice. So you can see how there's brand consistency there. You can see that it's all from the same brand, but actually it's evolved and grown over time in response to competition, to the market. So it's being able to evolve a brand within an identity and sort of retain that consistency, but also having opportunity to change things. So just recapping over those 5 simple steps. Number 1, what's special about you? That's your USP. Step number 2, review time, having a look at your own brand and thinking about, is it working for my business? Is it going to take me to where I want the business to go? Step number 3, how to choose a design partner, if in fact you need a design partner. Step number 4, what does a powerful brand look like? And step number 5, being really, really consistent with it. So yeah, I've just put on there, obviously we're going to look at any questions and answers, but just to say, if you want a little bit more advice or guidance or hints and tips, you can have a look at my LinkedIn account, because I'm often posting lots of links and things on there to talk to people about their branding. So I shall stop sharing my screen and then I can answer any questions that we might have.
Okay, thank you so much, Claire. It was a great talk. I love those images. Absolutely amazing. Well, fantastic. Thank you. So, so does anyone have any questions? It's over to you, Rob, for the questions.
Sure. There's none in the chat at the moment, I don't think. But does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Claire? Yeah, David, please go for it.
Claire, can you sort of point to any examples of not brands that you've worked on, but big corporates where you think that they've got very good branding, and conversely where people may have missed the mark a little bit?
Oh, okay. Okay, a good example of a brand that's got sort of very consistent good branding at the moment is, I think Vodafone is a good local, I live in Newbury, so it's a good example where all of their all of their branding is very, very tight. It's very, very clean. It's always in the right fonts, and you only need to see an image and it might have just a hint of the red or a hint of their typography style. I don't even need to see the logo and I know that it's Vodafone. So I think they're doing a good job at the moment. In terms of a company that's not doing very well in a big, that's quite difficult actually. I might have to come back to that one. You've caught me out there. I'll have a think. I'll come back to you.
Maybe they all understand the importance of branding and doing a good job.
Well, that is the difficult thing. It does stick out like a sore thumb when it's not working very well, and they'll soon get on it quite quickly. That so big companies invest a huge amount of money, but I think. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, didn't Gap have a bad example? I mean, I know they've closed now, but didn't Gap change their brand a few years ago, and it was an absolute nightmare, and they changed it back very quickly?
I mean, actually, the post office is a good one. They changed it, didn't they, to Insignia, and then changed it back again.
Consignia.
The Consignia, that's it.
Yeah. That's how bad it was.
Exactly.
The name, yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that branding is not just important for super big companies, because actually it's a conversation I had with one of my clients only recently, and they said, until we started working on our identity, we actually thought that branding was only for really big companies. And it's like, absolutely not. You know, it's a brand, you know, a brand can be anything from an entrepreneur who has, you know, who's a one-man band to a huge corporation. You know, it's just a visual representation of you and how you're being presented.
Brilliant. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Charles, do you have a question?
You're on mute, Charles. Oh.
Thank you. Claire, do you get involved in rebranding of individuals rather than companies? The reason I ask is that for many years I had a small company which I called the Roving Artist, which was basically myself and a few colleagues working as artist entertainers, silhouette artists at events. During the year of lockdown, I in some ways expanded my work. I've done a lot of work on Zoom, and I'm currently launching a new collection of paper cuttings and trying to move more into the fine art world, which is where I originally came from. And the result of that, I'm finding, is a certain amount of confusion, in the sense that there are lots of different things. And I would kind of like to unify that into basically to myself as an artist rather than as a company. So the brand essentially is me, Charles Burns, the silhouettist.
Yes.
But you know, a part of me feels, well, as an artist, I shouldn't need to employ a graphic designer because I should be able to do all that myself. But at the same time, it would be nice to think about how you might approach such a problem, you know, or just to, you know, just to sort of kick a few ideas about.
Yeah, no, definitely. We could have a conversation, but I think it's really easy to think, because I'm a creative, I should be able to do it myself. And it's almost the same as me saying, you know, I'm a creative, I don't need a garden designer, but actually my skill set isn't in garden design. And actually I worked really well with a local artist who is a sculptor and pottery artist, and created an identity for her. And she has quite a few different strings. So she has a you know, bronze sculptures, but then she also has, for example, a clay club, and also does clay classes. And so we've worked together to kind of brand her and sort of create all the brand messaging around her different services that she has. So it's absolutely something that you can, you know, that you can do. And it, just because you're a creative doesn't mean you should feel you have to do it all yourself. But we can have a chat, we can have a one-to-one.
Thank you, Claire. I would love that.
Brilliant. Shirley, would you like to ask the next question?
Yeah, it's not a question. It's just a point about how lucky am I that the font I use is called Lemonada.
Oh, I like it. Excellent.
Very on brand.
Made for me.
Great stuff. Any more questions, Francois? Do you have a question? Yeah.
It's not so much a question as a comment, I suppose, just in support of using people who are specialists in their field. So looking at creatives, because when I look at my kind of brand, or I can try and work on a few things, yes, I have some creative skills, but I get torn up all over the show. I get distracted. I like these things. I look at the imagery and things, and there's so much pretty stuff around there, if you like, but to have somebody to take you through the process, there's great value in that, I think. So just my 2 cents worth there. But
yeah,
I think, you know, we are our own worst clients. So even if you have the skills, you often don't have the objectivity to be able to stand outside yourself and do the kind of analysis that Claire went through. So, you know, it's like
I guess
hairdressers don't cut their own hair.
Absolutely.
When it's on your own business, you're far too close to it, aren't you? And you kind of, and it's in theory, it's too precious, so you won't make any. So I think it's good to work with someone else. So fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do we have any more questions, or Jackie?
Yeah, Claire, I just wondered, what sort of costs are we looking at? I mean, for small businesses, that they might feel a bit daunted. I might think, oh gosh, it's well beyond me. Just wondered if you might be able to make any comment about that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of cost, it's, you know, when I'm working with somebody, it's very much looking at the deliverables. So when I talked in the presentation about a designer will ask you what deliverables you need, there's always a level of thinking up front that then is applied to, it could be applied to just, for example, a business card, or to a whole identity. So there is kind of a chunk of work that's needed up front. I mean, I'd say, you know, for a smaller scale project that's quite tight in terms of the deliverables, probably looking at about £2,500 as a starting point. And then obviously depending on, if there's naming involved and a range of packaging and lots of other things, you can be talking, a lot more, anything from sort of 10,000 onwards. But it's once you've got the thinking up front, you've got the building blocks and the foundations. So actually quite a lot of the clients we've worked with, they've got an identity that we created 7 or 10 years ago that we're still building on. So it is quite an investment at the beginning, but it should serve you well if you do it properly and work with the right person.
Okay, then, thank you very much.
Okay, so I think that's probably any final questions, or should we? Okay, over to you, Jackie, I think.
Okay, thanks very much, Rob. Dave, do we have any more time for another breakout room?